I never thought a stack of glossy envelopes on my parents' dining table could make my stomach drop, but that's exactly what happened last Sunday. One second I was reaching for the potatoes, half listening to my dad complain about traffic, and the next I realized everyone was holding the same white envelope except me and my wife. My brother was already flipping his open, grinning like he'd just won something. My mom noticed me staring and gave me that tight, polite smile she uses when she knows she's about to say something hurtful but wants credit for being calm about it. For context, I'm Flynn, 34, married, one kid, steady job in tech. I'm not the black sheep exactly, but I've never been the favorite either. In our family, that role has always belonged to my younger brother, Ethan. He's 31, loud, charming when he wants to be, and permanently convinced that the world owes him something extra for existing. Growing up, if Ethan messed up, it was stress or bad influence. If I messed up, it was a character flaw. That dynamic never really went away. It just put on nicer clothes as we got older. Sunday lunch at my parents' place is a tradition we've kept for years. Same roast, same arguments recycled every few months, same unspoken competition between me and Ethan that everyone pretends not to notice. I usually go for my mom's sake more than anything. She likes to say these lunches are about family unity, which in practice means don't challenge anything and keep the peace, no matter how uncomfortable it gets. So when my dad cleared his throat and said, "We've got something exciting to share," I should have known better than to relax. He slid the envelopes across the table one by one. My aunt reached for hers. My cousin got one. Ethan got his last, right in front of him, like a ceremony. Everyone started murmuring, opening them, reading out bits and pieces. "A resort," my aunt said. "Wow, all-inclusive," my cousin added. Ethan laughed. "Finally, a proper family trip." I waited. A few seconds passed, then a few more. My wife squeezed my knee under the table, subtle but firm, like she was bracing me. I looked down. No envelope. I looked back up at my mom. She was already watching me, smile fixed, eyes sharp. "What's this?" I asked, keeping my voice even. "Did we miss one?" The table went quiet in that way that tells you everyone knows exactly what's happening. My mom tilted her head, still smiling. "Oh, Flynn, we didn't think you'd mind." "Mind what?" She waved her hand like she was brushing away a fly. "It's just simpler this way." That sentence hit harder than I expected. Simpler. As if my family was a complication, a logistical issue. Before I could respond, Ethan leaned back in his chair, stretching, enjoying the moment. "Yeah," he said casually. "Less drama." I nodded. Not because I agreed, but because I needed a second to stop myself from saying something that would blow the whole lunch apart. My mind started racing through the usual excuses. Maybe it was a small trip. Maybe space was limited. Maybe they assumed we were busy. But none of those thoughts lasted long, because the truth was sitting right there in the room, smug and unbothered. I forced a small laugh. "Right. Makes sense." My mom relaxed instantly, like she'd just passed a test. Conversation slowly picked back up. People talked about flight dates, activities, which rooms they hoped to get. No one looked at me. I sat there, nodding along, smiling at the right moments, feeling something tight and hot build in my chest. It wasn't just the exclusion. It was how normal it was for them. How easy. As they talked, I couldn't stop thinking about the emails I'd answered late at night, the phone calls I'd taken during my lunch breaks, the "just one more thing" requests that always somehow landed on me. Because while Ethan liked to talk about family trips and bonding, I was the one who handled logistics. I was the one who booked flights when plans fell apart. The one who covered deposits when someone's card wasn't working. The one who heard, "We'll pay you back," and knew exactly how that would go. My dad mentioned the airline they were flying. A specific one. The same one I'd spent hours on the phone with a few weeks earlier, sorting out a mess with tickets that had been accidentally double-booked. I felt my jaw tighten. "Sounds nice," I said slowly. "Did you end up fixing that issue with the reservations?" My mom frowned, just a little. "What issue?" "The one with the tickets," I said. "You know, when the payment didn't go through at first." Ethan shot me a look, sharp this time. "Why bring that up now?" I shrugged. "Just curious." My dad cleared his throat again. "That's all sorted. Flynn helped with it." Helped. That was a generous way to put it. I glanced around the table. Everyone was listening now, forks paused midair. "I did more than help," I said quietly. "I paid for them." The room froze. My mom's smile faltered for the first time. Ethan sat up straight. "That's not what we're talking about." my mom said quickly. No, I agreed. But it is related. My wife looked at me, eyes wide, not stopping me, but clearly aware we were crossing into dangerous territory. I could feel years of swallowed comments lining up behind my teeth, waiting their turn. I just think it's interesting, I continued, that it's simpler to leave us out of a trip I ended up paying for. Ethan laughed, but it sounded forced. You're exaggerating. Am I? I asked, meeting his eyes. Check the booking confirmation. It's under my account. No one spoke. The tension was thick enough to make my ears ring. My mom opened her mouth, then closed it again. My dad stared at his plate. I could tell this wasn't supposed to come out like this. The plan had been for me to smile, nod, and quietly absorb it, like always. Finally, my mom sighed. Flynn, this isn't the time. When would be the time? I asked. Because it never seems to be now. Her expression hardened, the warmth gone. We didn't ask you to do that. No, I said. You just let me. Ethan pushed his chair back slightly. You're making a big deal out of nothing. I looked at him, really looked at him, and realized how easy this all was for him. Invitations handed to him. Trips planned around him. Problems quietly solved by someone else. Nothing, I repeated. Right. I leaned back, folding my hands together to keep them from shaking. Part of me wanted to drop it, to retreat back into the role everyone expected. But another part, louder now, was tired. Tired of being convenient. Tired of being invisible until something needed fixing. I took a breath. Since we're talking about simplicity, I said, my voice calm but deliberate, maybe we should be clear about who's handling what going forward. My mom stiffened. What do you mean by that? I glanced at the envelopes again, then back at her. I mean, if we're not included, maybe I shouldn't be involved either. The words hung in the air, heavy and unresolved. No one knew what to say next. My dad finally looked up, concern flickering across his face. Ethan's jaw clenched, his confidence slipping just enough to notice. And right then, before anyone could respond, my phone buzzed on the table. A notification from the airline app. A reminder about the upcoming trip. I looked down at it, then back up at my family, and for the first time that afternoon, I smiled. The smile didn't last long after Sunday. It never does. That lunch cracked something open, and once that seal was broken, everything that had been quietly leaking for years started spilling out fast. On the drive home, my wife didn't say much at first. She watched the road, hands tight on the steering wheel, our kid asleep in the back. I knew that look. She was replaying the moment over and over, deciding whether to protect my feelings or tell me exactly how bad it looked from the outside. Finally, halfway home, she exhaled. They weren't even embarrassed, she said. That was what got me. Not angry, not sad, just disappointed. No, I replied. They weren't. The next few days were strange. Too quiet. Usually after a family dinner like that, I get a follow-up text from my mom. Something soft. Something that sounded like an apology but wasn't. This time, nothing. No check-in. No explanation. It was like they'd collectively decided the best way to handle what happened was to pretend it didn't. Then the request started again. It began small, almost polite. A message from my dad on Tuesday afternoon asking if I still had the login for the airline account. I stared at it longer than I should have. The irony was so obvious it almost felt scripted. Why? I typed back. Just want to double-check seat assignments, he replied. No please. No acknowledgement of Sunday. Just expectation. I didn't answer right away. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel obligated to jump. That silence felt powerful and honestly, a little scary. A few hours later, my mom texted. Hey sweetheart, can you call me when you get a minute? That word, sweetheart, always came out when she wanted something. I waited until the evening, until our kid was in bed and the house was quiet, then called. She launched into it immediately. No warm-up. You kind of put us in an awkward position on Sunday. I almost laughed. I did. Yes, she said firmly. That wasn't the right moment to bring up money. When would have been? I asked again, the same question she'd dodged before. She sighed dramatically. Flynn, this trip is meant to be relaxing. Family bonding. You bringing up payments made everyone uncomfortable. I leaned back on the couch, staring at the ceiling. I was already uncomfortable, I said. I just finally said it out loud. She ignored that. Your brother was really upset. That was it. The sentence that always ended these conversations. Ethan was upset. Everything else became secondary. I'm sure he was, I said. He doesn't like being reminded that things don't just appear out of thin air. Her tone sharpened. You're being unfair. Am I? I asked calmly. Because from where I'm standing, I paid for a family trip I wasn't invited on, and somehow I'm the problem. There was a pause. Not the thoughtful kind. The strategic kind. We didn't ask you to pay, she repeated, like a shield. No, I said. You just let me believe I was helping everyone. Big difference. She changed tactics. You know Ethan's situation. I almost cut her off right there, but I let her continue. I wanted to hear it. I wanted to hear how she'd justify it this time. He's been under a lot of stress. The business isn't where he thought it would be. This trip is important for his mental health. I closed my eyes. There it was. The unspoken hierarchy, finally spoken aloud. His comfort mattered. Mine was optional. So my family staying home helps his mental health. I asked. You're twisting it, she snapped. We just didn't want tension. Tension already existed, I said. You just preferred it when I swallowed it. She didn't answer that. Instead, she went quiet, then said softly, You've always been so independent. We just assumed you wouldn't take it personally. That sentence landed harder than anything else she'd said, because it explained everything. They didn't think I wouldn't care. They thought I could handle it, that I'd absorb it, that I always would. After that call, something shifted in me. Not anger exactly, more like clarity. I stopped filling the gaps. When my dad asked again for the airline login, I didn't respond. When my mom hinted that the hotel needed a credit card, just in case, I replied that I was busy. By Thursday, Ethan reached out directly. That almost never happened unless he wanted something. Bro, why are you being weird? He texted. I stared at the word weird for a long time. Then I typed back, What do you mean? You know what I mean. Mom says you're ignoring everyone. I'm not ignoring, I replied. I'm just not fixing things. A few minutes passed. Then, You're acting like we did this to hurt you. I laughed out loud at that. A short, humorless sound. Intent doesn't change impact, I wrote. His response came fast. You always do this. Make everything about you. That was rich, coming from someone whose entire life had been centered by everyone else. I put the phone down and didn't reply. For the first time, I didn't feel the need to explain myself to him. Friday night, my parents showed up at our house unannounced. I opened the door to find my mom standing there with that same careful expression, my dad just behind her, hands in his pockets. No smiles this time. We need to talk, my mom said. I stepped aside and let them in. My wife stayed in the kitchen, pretending to clean but listening closely. My parents sat on the couch like guests instead of family, stiff and formal. My dad spoke first. This situation has gotten out of hand. I nodded. It has. My mom clasped her hands. We need your help. There it was. No apology. No acknowledgement. Straight to the ask. With what? I asked. The trip, she said. There's been a problem with the return flights. Prices went up. The airline is saying changes will cost extra. I waited. She didn't disappoint. And we were hoping, she continued carefully, that you could cover it. Just temporarily. We'll sort it out later. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Not shock. Recognition. This was who they were when things got uncomfortable. They pushed. They leaned. They assumed. You want me to pay more money, I said slowly. For a trip my family isn't going on. My dad frowned. That's not fair. No, I agreed. It's accurate. My mom's eyes flashed. You're holding this over our heads. I'm setting a boundary, I replied. There's a difference. Her voice rose. So you're punishing us? I stood up. I'm opting out. The room went silent. My dad looked genuinely confused, like he'd never considered that possibility. My mom looked offended. You can't just withdraw support, she said. Family doesn't work that way. It has so far, I said. Just not in my favor. She stood too, matching my height, eyes hard. If you do this, she said, don't be surprised if relationships change. I met her gaze. They already have. They left shortly after that, clearly unhappy, clearly convinced I was the one being unreasonable. I thought that would be the breaking point. I was wrong. The real one came the next morning. I woke up to a message from my cousin. Short. Confused. Hey, is everything okay? Mom says you're not coming on the trip because you backed out last minute. My heart started pounding. I called him immediately. What do you mean backed out? I asked. Well, he hesitated. Aunt said you offered to help pay originally, then changed your mind and decided not to go. She said it was your choice. I felt sick. I thanked him, hung up, and just sat there for a long moment, staring at my phone. They hadn't just excluded me. They'd rewritten the story. Quietly, carefully, turning me from the person who paid into the person who bailed. The difficult one. The source of drama. My wife came into the room and took one look at my face. What did they do? I showed her the message. She read it once, then again, slower. They lied, she said. Yes, I replied. They did. Another notification popped up. Then another. Group chat messages. Casual comments about how plans change, and it's a shame Flynn couldn't make it. People reacting with sad emojis. Sympathy directed at my parents. And then I saw it. A photo posted by my brother. A screenshot of the booking confirmation, captioned, "Family trip locked in. Wish everyone could make it." The booking confirmation, with my name still on it. I stared at the screen, pulse pounding, as realization hit me all at once. Not only had they lied about why I wasn't going, they were still using my account, still planning to travel, still benefiting. And in that moment, as I scrolled through the comments and saw people consoling my parents for how hard this must be, something inside me snapped cleanly in two. I opened the airline app again. The same reminder stared back at me. Upcoming trip. Fully paid. My thumb hovered over the screen as I read the fine print for the third time, my mind racing, heart pounding, every past slight lining up behind this one. Because now it wasn't just favoritism. It was betrayal. And I finally understood something I should have realized years ago. If I didn't act, they would keep doing this forever. I looked at the clock, then at my wife. "I need a minute," I said. She nodded. "Do what you need to do." I sat down, phone in hand, staring at the options in front of me, knowing that whatever I chose next would change everything, and that there would be no going back once I did. I didn't do anything that morning. Not right away. That surprised me more than anything else. I sat there on the edge of the bed with my phone in my hand, staring at the airline app like it was daring me to make a move. Cancel. Modify. Transfer. Every option felt loaded. Every option felt final. For once, I didn't rush to fix the problem, and I didn't rush to retaliate either. I just sat with it, letting the weight of what they'd done settle in fully. Because this wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't poor communication. It was a coordinated rewrite of reality, and I was the villain in the version they were selling. I put my phone down and went downstairs. My wife was already up, making coffee, quiet in that deliberate way she gets when she's trying not to influence me. She handed me a mug and waited. "They're telling people I backed out," I said. She nodded. "I know. And they're still using my booking." Another nod. I figured. I took a long sip and stared out the window. "I feel stupid." She turned to face me fully. "You shouldn't. You trusted your family. That's not stupidity." It didn't feel that way. It felt like I'd finally reached the part of the story where everyone else had known the ending for years, and I was the only one still pretending it would change. That week was rough. Emotionally, I mean. Work was fine. Home was fine. But everything under the surface felt off balance. I kept replaying moments from childhood, from my 20s, from just a few months ago, and seeing them differently now. All the times I'd been asked to help out. All the times Ethan's needs quietly outranked mine. All the times I convinced myself it was normal. What really got me was how quickly the narrative spread. A few distant relatives reached out with polite concern. "Heard you couldn't make the trip. Such a shame." No one asked why. No one questioned it. The version my parents told was simple and comfortable. I was busy. I opted out. End of story. I didn't correct anyone. Not yet. Part of me wanted to blast the truth into the group chat, post receipts, blow the whole thing up. But another part of me was tired. Tired of reacting. Tired of explaining. Tired of being emotional so others could stay comfortable. Instead, I went quiet. That silence didn't go unnoticed. My mom called twice. I didn't answer. My dad left a voicemail that sounded more annoyed than concerned. Ethan sent a few messages that alternated between guilt and irritation. "You're really going to let this ruin things? This is hurting, Mom. You always take things too far." Each one felt like another attempt to pull me back into the role I was stepping out of. The fixer. The buffer. The reasonable one. The trip was 2 weeks away. 2 weeks of tension hanging over everything like a storm cloud no one wanted to acknowledge. Then something else happened. Something small, but revealing. I got an email from the hotel. "Dear Flynn," it began, "we're reaching out to confirm the final guest list for your upcoming stay." I stared at the screen. My name. My email. My reservation. They hadn't even bothered to change it. That was the moment I realized how deep their entitlement went. They weren't just comfortable excluding me. They were comfortable using my name, my credit, my account, like it all belonged to them by default. That night, after our kid was asleep, I logged into everything. Airline, hotel, travel insurance. I didn't cancel anything. I didn't change a single reservation. I just reviewed, took screenshots, downloaded confirmations, saved timestamps. Quietly, methodically, like someone preparing for a conversation that hadn't happened yet. And then I did something else. I removed my card from the account. Not dramatically. No notifications sent. Just gone. The next morning, my phone buzzed nonstop. At first, I ignored it. I was in a meeting, then another. By the time I checked, I had missed calls from my mom, my dad, and Ethan. There were texts too. Call me now. There's an issue with the booking. Why would you do this without saying anything? I waited until the afternoon before responding. One message. To my mom. What issue? Her reply came instantly. The hotel is asking for a valid card. They're saying the one on file was removed. I let that sit for a few minutes before typing back. Yes, I removed it. There was a pause this time. A real one. Then why? I read that single word over and over. Why? As if this hadn't been building for decades. Because I'm not going, I wrote. And I'm not paying. Her response was longer, sharper. Accusations wrapped in concern. How this was embarrassing. How people were counting on things being settled. How I was putting them in a difficult position. Not once did she acknowledge the lie. Not once did she apologize for excluding us. Not once did she admit they'd crossed a line. That's when I understood something important. This wasn't about money to them. It was about access. Control. The assumption that I would always be there to smooth things over, even if I wasn't invited to the table. The fallout was immediate. Ethan called that evening, furious. He didn't bother with pleasantries. What is wrong with you? He snapped. Do you know how bad this makes us look? I laughed quietly. Us. You know what I mean, he said. Mom's stressed. Dad's angry. You could have just talked to us. I tried, I said. You laughed. There was a beat of silence. Then he scoffed. You're seriously still stuck on that? Yes, I replied. Because it mattered. He lowered his voice, like he was trying a new angle. Look, just put the card back. We'll figure it out later. No, I said. You're being selfish. I almost corrected him. Almost explained the difference between selfishness and self-respect. But I stopped myself. He wouldn't hear it. He never had. I'm being done, I said instead. He hung up on me. The days after that were quiet again, but this time the quiet felt different. Less heavy. More deliberate. I focused on work. Took my kid to the park. Cooked dinners without checking my phone every 5 minutes. And slowly, something unexpected happened. I started to feel lighter. Not happier exactly, but steadier. Like I wasn't constantly bracing for the next request, the next subtle guilt trip, the next moment where I'd have to choose between peace and dignity. A week before the trip, my aunt called me directly. No filters. No intermediaries. I need to ask you something, she said. And I want the truth. I told her everything. Calmly. Clearly. I didn't exaggerate. I didn't editorialize. I just laid out the facts. Who paid? Who was excluded? Who lied? She was quiet for a long time after I finished. That's not what we were told, she said finally. I know, I replied. I'm sorry, she said. And for the first time in this entire mess, I believed it. Words started to shift. Slowly. Not publicly. Quiet conversations. Side messages. People asking questions my parents hadn't expected to answer. And then, 3 days before the trip, my mom showed up at my door again. Alone this time. She looked smaller somehow. Tired. But still defensive. We need to talk, she said. I stepped aside and let her in. She didn't sit down. She stood in the middle of the living room like she was afraid to get comfortable. This has gone too far, she said. People are getting involved. I crossed my arms. That wasn't my doing. She sighed. Ethan is devastated. There it was again. The center of gravity pulling everything back toward him. What about me? I asked quietly. She looked at me, really looked at me, and for a split second, I thought she might finally understand. Instead, she said, You're strong. You'll be fine. That sentence broke something in me. Not loudly. Cleanly. I am fine, I said. That's the problem. You confuse my strength with permission. Her mouth opened, then closed. I walked to the door and opened it. I think you should go. She hesitated, like she was waiting for me to soften. When I didn't, She picked up her purse and left without another word. After the door closed, I stood there for a long time, heart pounding, realizing I'd just done something I'd never done before. I'd chosen myself without apologizing. That night, as I sat on the couch scrolling through the airline app one more time, I noticed something new. A notification I hadn't seen before. A deadline. A final window to make changes without penalties. I read the details carefully, pulse slowing, mind sharpening. For the first time since this all started, I wasn't reacting. I was planning. The trip was 5 days away. 5 days until my parents, my brother, my aunts, uncles, cousins, all boarded flights booked under my name, funded by my money, wrapped in a story where I was the unreliable one who chose not to come. 5 days until they toasted drinks at a resort and congratulated themselves on keeping things simple. I didn't plan to ruin their vacation. Not directly. That would have been loud. Obvious. Easy to spin against me. No. I planned to let the truth arrive the same way their entitlement always had. Quietly, inevitably, and with receipts. The first thing I did was stop isolating myself. For years, I'd handled family issues one-on-one, behind closed doors. Private conversations. Phone calls late at night. Quiet compromises. That's how they kept control. Everything was contained. Everything could be reframed. So I did the opposite. I started responding. Not emotionally. Not defensively. Just factually. When my aunt messaged asking, "So are you really not coming because of work?" I replied, "We weren't invited." When a cousin said, "Heard you backed out last minute," I answered, "I was excluded before plans were finalized, but the booking was still left under my account." I didn't attach screenshots. Not yet. I didn't accuse. I didn't rant. I just stated facts in neutral language and let people sit with the discomfort of them. The reactions were subtle but telling. Short replies. Long pauses. Follow-up questions. You could almost feel the narrative wobble as people compared notes. Then I called my aunt again, the same one who'd apologized earlier. She was always the quiet observer in the family. Never confrontational, but never blind either. "I want to be clear about something," I told her. "I'm not trying to embarrass anyone. I just don't want to be misrepresented." She understood immediately. "They shouldn't have put you in that position." "I didn't put myself there," I said. "That's the point." She hesitated. "You know your mother won't handle this well." "I know," I replied. "That's why I'm not confronting her. I'm stepping back." That distinction mattered. I wasn't chasing accountability. I was removing cover. The next piece fell into place unexpectedly. 2 days later, my dad called me. Not my mom, not Ethan. My dad. That alone told me something had shifted. His voice was tired. "Your aunt spoke to us." "I figured," I said. "She thinks things have been miscommunicated." I almost smiled. Miscommunicated was family code for exposed. "I told the truth," I said. "I know," he replied quietly. That was new. He cleared his throat. "Your mother is upset. She feels like you're turning people against her." I didn't respond right away. I wanted him to hear the silence. "I didn't tell anyone to take sides," I said eventually. "I just stopped lying for her." Another pause. Longer this time. Then he said something I didn't expect. "Your brother didn't know you weren't invited." I closed my eyes. Not because it hurt, but because it confirmed everything. "You didn't tell him?" I asked. "No," he admitted. "Your mother said it would cause problems." "Of course she did." "So Ethan thought you, and I just decided not to come," I said. "Yes." I thanked him for telling me and ended the call before he could say anything else. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt steady. Pieces were finally locking into place. That night, I sat down and made a list. Not a dramatic one. Not a manifesto. Just facts. What I paid for. When I paid it. What communications I received. What communications I didn't. What was said publicly. What was said privately. I saved emails. Downloaded invoices. Screen recorded the booking details. Everything time-stamped. Everything traceable. Not because I planned to publish it, but because I wanted something my family never expected me to have. Proof without emotion. The day before the trip, Ethan showed up at my house. He didn't text first. He didn't call. He just knocked. Hard. Like he owned the place. I opened the door and stepped outside, closing it behind me. I wasn't letting him bring this energy into my home. "What is going on?" he demanded. I looked at him calmly. "You tell me." He ran a hand through his hair. "Mom says you're making things weird. People are asking questions. Why didn't you just come to us?" "I did," I said. "You laughed." "That was a joke," he snapped. "It didn't land." I replied. He scoffed. You're blowing this up for attention. I studied him for a moment. Not the words, his posture. Defensive. Uncertain. He was off balance, and he didn't like it. Did you know we weren't invited? I asked. He froze. Just for a second. But it was enough. What? He said. Did you know, I repeated slowly, that my family wasn't invited on this trip? He frowned. You said you couldn't make it. I never said that. Mom said. I nodded. She told you we backed out. Silence. He looked past me, then back again. That doesn't make sense. It does if you assume she didn't want you to know, I said. His jaw tightened. Why would she do that? I shrugged. You'd have to ask her. For the first time in his life, Ethan looked uncertain about his position in the family. Not threatened. Just unsteady. So you're really not paying anymore? He asked. No, I said. I'm not. You're just going to let everything fall apart? I shook my head. I'm letting it stand on its own. He stared at me like I'd spoken another language. You think this makes you the bigger person? No, I said. I think it makes me done. He left without another word. That night, my mom sent me a long message. Longer than any she'd sent in years. It talked about sacrifice. About everything she'd done for me. About how families shouldn't keep score. About how disappointed she was. I read it once. Then again. Slowly. And then I didn't respond. Instead, I forwarded it to myself and archived the thread. The morning of the trip arrived quietly. No dramatic texts. No last-minute pleas. Just silence. I checked the airline app one last time. The flights were still active. The reservations still intact. Still under my name. But something had changed. There was a note attached to the booking now. A system-generated update confirming passenger responsibility acknowledgments. It included the primary account holder's name. Mine. Which meant something very important. If there were disputes, complaints, or issues, they would route through me. I didn't smile. I didn't feel excited. I felt prepared. Because I wasn't planning to sabotage their trip. I was planning to let them enjoy every second of it. Right up until the moment they realized the story they'd told no longer belonged to them. And as I set my phone down and walked into the kitchen, my wife looked up and asked, "Are you okay?" I nodded. "Yeah. Are you ready?" I glanced back at the screen, at the reservation details, at my name sitting quietly at the top. "More than they think," I said. And somewhere between that moment and the plane lifting off the runway, I knew the next move wouldn't come from anger, or impulse, or a need to prove anything. It would come from timing. And timing, I'd learned, changes everything. The morning they left, I woke up before my alarm. Not because I was anxious. Not because I was excited. Just alert. Like my body knew something was finally about to resolve itself. I made coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and opened the airline app one last time. The flights were boarding. Notifications were rolling in. Check-in completed, baggage confirmed. Everything moving forward exactly as planned. And that was the key difference. I hadn't canceled anything. I hadn't blocked anyone. I hadn't created chaos. I'd let the system do what systems do best when the wrong people assume control and force reality. Because buried in the fine print, the part no one ever reads, was a clause that mattered a lot more than my family realized. Any itinerary booked through a primary account holder remained financially and administratively tied to that account until travel completion. Not payment. Authority. And authority, it turns out, is a quiet thing. It doesn't shout. It just waits. By mid-morning, my phone buzzed. A message from my aunt. A photo. My family at the airport gate. Smiling. Drinks in hand. Captioned, "Finally happening." I replied with a thumbs up and set my phone down. The first call came 3 hours later. It was my dad. I answered calmly. "Hey, Flynn," he said, breathless. "We need to talk." "What's going on?" There was a pause. Then, "We've got a problem with the hotel." I leaned back in my chair. "What kind of problem?" "They're saying the reservation is incomplete. That the primary guest didn't authorize final confirmation." "I see," I said. "They won't release the rooms." I waited. Let him connect the dots. "They're asking for you," he added quietly. I didn't rush to respond. When I finally spoke, my voice was steady. "Did they explain why?" He sighed. "Because the booking is under your name." "Yes," I said. "It is." Another pause. Longer. He was piecing it together now. "Flynn, can you fix this?" I closed my eyes for a moment, not out of guilt, but to keep my voice even. "Before I answer that, I need to ask something." "What?" "Did you tell people I chose not to come?" Silence. Dad, yes. And did you let them believe I backed out? Yes. I nodded, even though he couldn't see it. Okay. So, he asked, can you help? I thought of Sunday lunches, of laughter at my expense, of lies that traveled faster than the truth because they were easier to swallow, of my wife sitting quietly beside me while I absorbed insult after insult for the sake of peace. I'm going to be very clear, I said. I'm not fixing anything. But we're already here, he said. Everyone's exhausted. Your mother is upset. I'm sure she is, I replied. You're really going to let this happen? I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I didn't cause this, I said. I just stopped protecting it. He didn't respond. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, I added. I need to get back to work. I hung up. 10 minutes later, my mom called. I didn't answer. She called again. I let it ring. Then Ethan. I answered that one. What did you do? He demanded. I didn't do anything, I said. They're saying the hotel can't check us in. That's correct. Why? Because the person who booked it isn't there, I replied, and wasn't invited. You did this on purpose, he said. No, I corrected him. I let it stay exactly as it was. He laughed, sharp and panicked. You're enjoying this. I'm learning from it, I said. You could fix this in 5 minutes. Yes, I agreed. I could. So do it. I took a breath. Before I do, I want something. Of course you do. I want you to tell everyone the truth, I said. All of it. What truth? That my family wasn't invited. That I paid for the bookings. That I didn't back out. You left me out. He scoffed. You're insane. Then enjoy the lobby, I replied. I hung up. The next hour was quiet. Then the messages started. Not from my parents. From everyone else. My aunt. Is it true you weren't invited? My cousin. We're stuck waiting. What's going on? Another relative. Your mom says there's a misunderstanding. I responded to each one with the same calm sentence. I wasn't invited, but the booking was left under my account. No blame. No emotion. Just fact. By the time my mom called again, the story had collapsed under its own weight. I answered. Her voice was strained. People are asking questions. I know. This didn't need to happen, she said. You're right, I replied. It didn't. She swallowed. If you help now, we can explain it away. That sentence sealed it. No, I said. If I help now, nothing changes. So what do you want? She asked, exasperated. I want honesty, I said. Publicly. And I want acknowledgement. Not excuses. She hesitated. You're holding everyone hostage. I shook my head. I'm holding a boundary. Another pause. Finally, she said. If we tell them the truth, will you fix it? Yes, I said. Immediately. She didn't answer right away. I could hear muffled voices in the background. Ethan, probably. Others. Confusion spreading. Then my phone buzzed with a notification. A message in the family group chat. From my mom. I need to clarify something. Flynn didn't back out of this trip. He and his family were not invited, even though he paid for the bookings. That was my decision. I'm sorry. I stared at the screen. No spin. No justification. Just truth. I waited 30 seconds. Then I opened the hotel app, authorized the final confirmation, added my aunt as a temporary contact, and completed the check-in. I sent one final message in the group chat. Reservation confirmed. Enjoy your stay. Then I muted the thread. The fallout came later. Some relatives apologized. Some avoided the topic entirely. My dad thanked me quietly when they got home. Ethan didn't speak to me for months. My mom tried to smooth things over, but something had shifted permanently. The dynamic that relied on my silence no longer worked. And the strangest part? I didn't feel victorious. I felt free. Because the revenge wasn't the inconvenience, or the embarrassment, or the truth coming out at the worst possible moment. The revenge was watching them realize I wasn't the role they'd assigned me anymore. I wasn't the fallback. I wasn't the fixer. I wasn't the quiet one who paid and stayed invisible. I was the author of my own boundaries. And once people learn you won't lie to protect their comfort, they treat you very differently. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do isn't raising your voice. It's finally stepping out of the story they wrote for you and letting them deal with what's left.